Welcome back to the channel. I am Zip and thrilled to hang out with you and bring you the latest news in the digital asset space. Today, we have a ton of news to go over. Everything from pivotal regulation, stablecoin news, huge XRP ETF news, airdrops for XRP and ADA holders, anybody? And most importantly, at the end, I'm going to go through my financial system and how I plan to exit the markets to build long-lasting wealth. Plus a little bit more bonus there to show you some strategies that may work for you. The bottom line is that what I want to do with the content that I'm putting out is to give you options, to give you an idea of what to do, because we know the price is going to go up in many of these assets that we hold. And I don't care which asset we're talking about, whether it's XRP, BTC, ADA, it doesn't matter. The price and the implementation, we see what is going on. The prices are going to go up, but without having a plan, you're going to fall flat on your face, okay? Buying these assets is easy. Exiting the market, not as easy, but making sure that we hold on to the profits long-term for generational wealth is the hardest. So we'll get into that today. And again, just do me a favor, please smash those likes, drop comments. I try to reply to them all, even the negative ones. I don't mind a little bit of bantering back and forth as long as it's not, too grotesque. We can all have differences of opinion. That's okay. I'm non-emotional. I know what I know. You know what you know. We can grow the community together. And that's the key. And hopefully by the end of this, if you're not already subscribed, you'll go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can, continue to get content and drops as we're on this journey together. All right, let's get into it. Now, first, as many of you know, my theme for months has been regulations are key to unlocking these digital assets that we love to what? To allow institutional inflows and really to allow utility to ramp up, to give them legal clarity. An absolutely landmark piece of legislation today will be voted on in the Senate, and that is the Genuis Act. We've been talking about it for a couple months, but this bill will modernize the payment system with stablecoins, and it's going to ensure future dollar dominance. Now, let's listen to Senator Bill Hagerty explain why it's so important.
I'd say first, I'm very enthusiastic about the stablecoin legislation that I've led. We've been working on this for months. We have a strong bipartisan product. We will deliver that midday today. We'll have it ready. And I think it's got a tremendous amount of input from the industry, from my colleagues here. We've involved the administration. I think we're going to have a great product that actually sets the stage for moving into a modern day payment system into the 21st century, getting us off the old system that was designed in the 1970s and 80s, making the dollar the key element in the digital arena. And frankly, it will stimulate more demand for U.S. Treasuries. It will strengthen the dollar's position as a reserve currency. We're going to see that advance in a way that, again, takes a lot of friction out of an old clunky system, reduces counterparty risk, reduces currency risk, and will bring a lot of working capital.
An old clunky system. We have to modernize this, and it's happening with these digital assets. Now, remember, one of the president's mandates, is to get these crypto regulations on his desk by August. And there are other bills that are still being marked up, like the Clarity Act as an example, which gives us broader framework guidance for digital assets. And it's also going to be how the institutions know how to legally handle all of this new infrastructure as the old system is being thrown away and the new system is coming in place and being modernized. Exciting. I may even throw in a live today later on when the vote happens. It's such a landmark piece of legislation if I can catch it. Keep an eye out for that if you want to join us. And we can answer some questions and stuff during that time as well. Other stuff going on, and, as we talk about stablecoin news, here we have Van Eck, who just announced an investment in Ubix, a startup pushing to make stable coins a global financial standard. This highlights, ladies and gentlemen, the backing here that VanEck is doing of UBIX, a neutral clearing platform. It's designed to connect stablecoin issuers with banks, with fintechs, and wallets. Now, the big sell here, UBIX claims it can clear transactions for just $1 compared to $37, which was what it costs in the traditional system. Talk about a game changer for cross-border payments and settlements. This is it. Now, what is it? What exactly does it mean? It means big picture, the macro. VanEck, a major player in traditional finance, they're betting big on stablecoins, which, are cryptocurrencies pegged, digital assets pegged to the US dollar to keep value steady. UBIX's goal, is to turn stablecoins into everyday cash, solving this messy, many-to-many network problem that we have currently by creating a standardized infrastructure. $10 million in seed funding that they announced. This was led by Galaxy Ventures with VanEck, also Coinbase Ventures and the Founders Fund. So this is not just some kind of like throw it out there and let's see what sticks kind of plan. UBIX plans to launch by year end on Solana and Base, and they're also partnering with issuers like Paxos and, you guessed it, Ripple to make this a reality. So with Ripple, we know it's RLUSD. We talk about a lot of that here on the channel, but zoom out a little further. This isn't an isolated move. We're seeing a clear trend, where all these big companies are jumping into the stablecoin space, where we can look at Stripe's billion-dollar acquisition of Bridge, or as we reported on, what was it, MoonPay, their buyout of Iron, I think it was earlier this year. They're all doubling down on stablecoin payment infrastructure. These moves are about tapping into efficiency, speed that stablecoins actually can offer, especially for global transactions. So very, very interesting. And remember, adding fuel to this today is that Genius Act. Man, wild times to live in, and we are here to take advantage, and we're going to be the profiteers, from the investments that we have, and we are just positioned perfectly and early in this space. I want to emphasize that it is still early, ladies and gentlemen. So just keep that in mind and be patient out there. Other news going on. All right. The Ripple SEC case update. I want to break through some misinformation that's out there that I've seen. This is a delay on the appeal case only, to allow the judge. We know the judge, we're waiting for her to finalize and just drop that injunction that has been requested by the SEC in the district court. Our regulatory system, regulation system is just, law system is just so layered, like everything. So I can see where the confusion would be, but again, really, they'd wanted to push back the appeals because there hasn't been a decision yet from the judge on the injunction. Now, the rumor is we could hear that news anytime. I'm hearing rumors out there, maybe this Thursday, sometime this week, or early next week. Rumors are rumors until we actually have the news and it's been stamped. We're just going to chill and just stand by patiently. We've been waiting for a while for this, so a little longer. It's going to be what it is. But again, everything is lining up. We have so much movement in this space, and it's all lining up to really have, seems like, one big explosion. Now, other news. We're going to listen to Chris Larson here, and we're going to extrapolate and look at the bigger picture after this to see, again, where things are going with XRP, but the broader system in general. But let's take a listen to Chris here as he's having a conversation with Paul.
A technological war, it's a values war.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The U.S. has had, and its allies have had this incredible privilege of basically having, the main stewardship I don't know if you will, control, but power. I mean, incredible advantage by not just the U.S. dollar, but effectively sort of stewardship over the global payment system, global financial system. Huge, huge advantage. But that's benefited other people too, including China.
Right.
It's interesting. I mean, China could have made a decision at the dawn of the internet to say, nope, we're not going to be part of that. We're going to have our own internet. We'll have two of them. World would have split apart. That didn't happen because they saw it was in their interests, because of globalization benefited China to be part of the main system, even if the stewardship of it, was a great deal in the U.S. and its allies, the West. That's the same thing we face today. I would argue that it's not just important for the U.S. to maintain sort of stewardship of the next gen financial system. I'd actually argue it's better for everybody, including China. And I think if we play our cards right, like I know we're in this tech Cold War now, but that's going to pass 5-10 years, about who knows how long. But I think we can get to a place where China would be comfortable, and then the world is kind of organized in a single system again.
Again, blockchain is decentralizing power across, countries and industries. It's not just about cryptocurrencies. It's revolutionizing what we've been talking about, finance with faster, cheaper, cross-border payments, enhancing supply chain transparency, as well as securing health data. There are so many opportunities with this technology to just make the world a better place in general. Now, we know there's over 100 countries that are exploring central bank digital currencies, kind of what he was speaking to there, that are underpinned by blockchains, driven by the need for better efficiency and security in the new digital economy. XRP is designed, we know this, for speed and low cost, settling transactions in seconds at a fraction of the traditional costs. It is neutrality that we're talking about. It's unaffected by geopolitical biases. It makes it ideal for international transactions without countries, losing independence. XRP can interact with multiple systems. It's going to be a multipolar world, a multi-interconnected world, and XRP, that just shows us it can potentially become the standard for this interoperability that I'm discussing. As CBDCs and the digital finance infrastructures grow, XRP absolutely can facilitate that cross-border interaction that we need. And it's going to be supported by regulatory moves like the potential passing again as part of it as the Genuis Act today. This is what's going to legitimize XRP and really encourage global adoption. As he said, in a tech war world, so to speak, XRP sitting in the middle, it's neutral and it can balance geopolitical tensions and really just keep finance connected, yet keep, countries and businesses independent at the same time. And don't forget, solve the liquidity crisis that we see in today's, infrastructure. But exciting to see, and we'll see where things go. But my money's on XRP. Now, speaking of which, anybody like free crypto, free digital assets? I'm bringing this up again because remember, Midnight, which is the side chain to Cardano that Hoskinson's working on, it's going to distribute up to 37 million tokens to multiple blockchains, 8 blockchains as it says here. So what are the blockchains? They're going to be Cardano, Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, BNB, Ripple, meaning XRP, Avalanche, and BAT will be eligible. Now, the reason I keep highlighting this is you have to be prepared if you want these coins or you want to take advantage of this airdrop. And by that meaning you have to have your coins really off of central exchanges. You have to have them in your own wallet, which is what we talk about all the time anyhow. I want my assets on a hardware wallet or a software wallet that I utilize to do some DeFi stuff. Whatever the case is, You got to get them off the central exchanges, or you're going to get caught up like many folks got caught up years ago when the Flare airdrop came and all these exchanges said they were not participating and then they were going to participate. And it was just a nightmare trying to get your Flare and your Songbird tokens. So again, airdrop coming, be prepared, get your assets off of the exchanges. And when more information comes out on this, I'll let you know. Now, big news here. How about the first ever approved XRP ETF in North America, specifically Canada? Purpose Investments tomorrow morning, Wednesday, the 18th, goes live with the first spot XRP ETF in North America. Let's take a listen.
Purpose Investments is set to launch its spot XRP ETF on the Toronto Stock Exchange, after filing with Canada's SEC to offer the XRP-based investment product in the country. This marks the first spot XRP fund approved in North America. The fund will trade under the ticker XRPP on the Toronto Stock Exchange, providing direct exposure to XRP. XRP's price rose 6.5% following the announcement.
Speaking of ETFs, let's take a look at where we stand with the ETFs that we've been talking about. So here's where we are. These are all the ETFs that are, waiting for the SEC to be approved. So we'll highlight XRP because it's one of our favorite digital assets. It's got a 85% approval rating right now of being passed this year. We also have Cardano, we have HBAR down here, and a whole litany of others. Solana, Litecoin, very exciting. The infrastructure, the world is changing. And, when these ETFs, are approved again, just remember, that's more liquidity and market players coming in and buying these assets, and they're doing it through an ETF. I personally wouldn't do it that way, but hey, everybody has their own game plan. So again, ETF news is big. XRP, the first one in North America, is approved, and Canada beat us to it, ladies and gentlemen. But exciting. We'll see what happens with these other ETFs in the future here. Now, we're going to transition. We've talked about this before. This part, we're going to talk about my exit strategy. Again, nothing I say is financial advice. I'm just sharing my journey here with you and trying to give you some ideas of things that you can do in order to prepare when you decide to exit these markets. Let me switch some things up here so nothing's blocked. All right. Again, this is just high level exit basics. Do your own research. Every situation's different. We don't FOMO in. We're non-emotional investors. We're just staying the course. Obviously, your age matters with some of this. I don't know how old you are, but depending on your age, your decision matrix is going to be infinitely different. So this is very generic with regards to the conversation, but this stuff works for everyone. It's just a matter of timing. And again, speaking of timing, time in the market may matter. I don't know how long you've owned what you own, but you have to understand the tax implications with regards to that. And we're going to hire professionals. We're going to have CPAs, attorneys, if required, to make sure that everything is handled on the up and up. And recommend establishing a personal structure strategy with regards to LLCs and trusts. These are all things that you can research and go out there and understand why you may want those entities set up. Now, we talked about this previously. This is just an example, ladies and gentlemen. These are not price targets. I just threw some prices on there of kind of where I think I'll exit at different, laddered approaches. We've got XLM up here. We've got HBAR as an example. We've got XDC. What am I doing here? I'm basically at certain intervals. My plan is, and why I am diversified, is to level out and pull capital out of some of these other assets that I own. As an example, at $3, if XLM hits $3, I'm going to pull 10% out, and I'm going to deploy that capital. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm riding XRP for a while. Okay, I plan on continuing to load that basket. That's my decision. Yours may be different. It doesn't matter what pie chart you put here and what asset it is. It's going to work the same. The same thing for HBAR. I'm going to level out, say at $1, I'll take 10% off HBAR and pull more profits and push them into XRP. Basically just do a swap, no matter where the price of XRP is. Okay, because long term, I believe price escalation for XRP is going to be high. But the same thing with XDC. So again, just taking a laddered approach and funneling things down into XRP. Now, what am I going to do with my XRP holdings? Remember, time in markets, as I spoke to a minute ago. I don't know how long you've been in the market, but some of us have been in the market maybe since 2018, 2019. So we may, and my age depends on it, okay? If you're 50 or older, you may want to pull some of this off, the capital out that you have invested. And when I do that, as I pull and ladder out of XRP, say at like $10, I pull 10%. And when I say 10%, I'm pulling 10% of whatever your bag is. So, you know, if it's 5,000 XRP, 10% of 5,000. If it's 20,000, 10% of that. If you got more than that, great. It's 10%. And I'm going to ladder out and I'm going to make sure that I'm putting it into my system. This is my system. This may or may not work for you. Can almost guarantee it will work for you though, but you have to have a system and a plan in place or else you're going to fall flat on your face. That's just how it happens. So I like infinite banking, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. I'm going to shed some of that capital and I'm going to put it into my policies for protection and continued compounded growth of my money ongoing, and some other capabilities that we'll talk about. If you have debt, pay off the debt, especially your high interest debt. Debt is, you know, causing you to go backwards, basically. If you have credit cards, pay them off. You know, cars, your house, so you can take advantage of a HELOC, which we'll talk about here in a minute. I'm also, you know, putting it into dividend ETFs. Why? Because I want cash flow. I want monthly or quarterly cash flow coming in so that I can redeploy it into other assets or even back into the crypto market. It just depends. You just have to analyze and look at your individual plan. But the key is, the emphasis here is you got to have that plan. Now, this is what it looks like. And this is where we're going to spend a little bit more time. Again, I went over real quickly how I'm using this is my system and whatnot. And if you have comments, please drop them in the comments. I will not answer anything specific to how to handle your finances. I'm not going to tell you what to buy, when to sell, or anything like that. But if it's a generic question, I'll answer those. But I'm not giving financial advice. You know, it's just not what we do here. Now, let's talk about the different components. And this is where I want you to have an understanding of what the possibilities are. Maybe this can help some of you out there. Infinite banking. You can go out and talk about infinite banking or, you know, investigate infinite banking. I would recommend taking the book, Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash, and reading it. And you're going to have to read it probably 30 times. Not that it's difficult to understand, but remember, we have been groomed and trained to think a certain way about money. And you've got to unravel that thought process. It's why this book really is really good. And it gives a deep dive on infinite banking. But why do I use infinite banking? And infinite banking really is just a whole life policy, but it is a strategically designed whole life policy. This is not our mom and dad's whole life policy where they just put money in there just to have an insurance policy. It's different. I'm utilizing the policy. You know, it provides compounded growth on my principal at 4 to 7%, no matter if I take loans or not. And that's the key. It's tax-free to take loans off of money that I've accumulated into this environment. What am I going to do with those loans? I'm going to buy other assets. I don't go out and buy junk. You know, someday, maybe I will have the availability to go buy a Lamborghini if I want a Lamborghini, but timing is everything. I want to make sure I have cash flow and capital secured before I start going buying a bunch of toys and such. Now that just works for Zip. You have to make your own decision. And furthermore, it's an emergency fund. If something pops up, I can pull money from it to go pay for it, like an air conditioner as an example. You know, whatever the case may be, it gives you the opportunity to reutilize your money over and over again, basically becoming the bank. That's what we're talking about here on this channel, becoming our bank in many different ways. One of them is through, you know, infinite banking and whole life policies. Another one is, how about that house that you're living in? If you're blessed enough to have a house, how about all that empty equity that you're not utilizing? I would recommend go out and go look up what a first lien HELOC is. If you have questions, drop them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. But by having and freeing up that unused space up in the attic, I'm able to have immediate capital deployment. All of that equity I have in the house, I can take and deploy it and go buy more assets. Okay. But you have to be very disciplined and understand that it's not a free credit card. All right. You have to have ways to pay that money back. So whether it's from a W-2 job that you may have, or maybe a side hustle in a business, or you're selling off digital assets, whatever the case may be, I would only recommend this if you are very, very detailed and you have a budget and you understand money. You don't want to get yourself into trouble by utilizing some of these tools, but it also acts as an emergency fund. You know, I can deploy money instantaneously that otherwise would be just locked up in a traditional 30-year mortgage. You know, again, retraining your brain to think differently than the way that we have been taught to in the financial education system that's been provided to us. That's the key there. So I love the HELOCs. And something else some folks don't think about. Now, I'm going to caution everyone when I talk about iTrustCapital real quick. I would not necessarily start a Roth if you don't already have assets out there. If you want to buy digital assets, just go buy them. Personally, that's my personal opinion. But what you're able to do, maybe you have an old IRA out there, or an older Roth, or an older brokerage account. You can pull that money out, and if you're looking for capital to buy more digital assets, iTrustCapital is a phenomenal platform. I've been using them for years, and they're just continuing to grow. And you know, there's a link in the description of the videos. If you want to use that link, great. If not, go out to them direct. I don't care, but I want to expose you to the possibility of maybe you have an additional $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 out there that you would like to utilize instead of coming out of your W-2 income or some other, you know, capital. You can move those policies from other brokerages into iTrustCapital. Fairly easy process. And then you can go out and you can buy more digital assets if you choose to do that. But again, it's a tax, the Roth piece of this, it's a tax-free crypto growth environment. So you have to do your education on what a Roth is, but it really is a great tool. They also migrate old IRAs now as well. So if you have an IRA from a company that you had worked with previously, maybe you'd like to migrate that over to iTrust. But it just gives us the ability to create more exposure to different assets. Again, multiple plays in this system, just trying to give you guys some ideas out there and things that I'm utilizing, you know, instead of just talking high level about them and saying, go do research. Here's practically what is going on, and these are some of the tools that I am using. Now, I hope you enjoyed all this content in the news today. Like I said, I may try to jump back on later on with a live if I can catch the Genius Act bill as it's being voted on. I think that would be exciting because that is actually absolutely a landmark bill going through for the United States. Exciting times in the digital asset environment. Remember, Be safe out there. Stay smart. Don't engage with any scammers, scam accounts, the bot accounts. I try to delete them as much as possible, but they just continue to be populating in there. I am not reaching out to you directly. If people are stealing my persona, my image, and reaching out to you, it's not me. Okay. I have nothing to give you. I'm not selling you anything. I'm not giving you anything for free outside of this content. So just be very, very, very safe out there, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, until next time, Zip is out.